Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. I've been getting a lot of requests from a lot of folks say, how did you get Oakland City sanctioning? And so I'm going to talk about that. This is going to be a multi-part conversation here. And here's what it revolves around. It revolves around a law called adverse possession. And so I'm going to talk about that more in depth towards the end, and then in the next series, I'm going to get more into how adverse possession works. And so anyway, a lot of you have been asking, well, nobody else in Oakland really got the mayor's sanctioning. How did you get it? Okay, here's what happened. And there's some tricks to this that you need to know. And so one of the things that you have to understand is that public and private property are dealt with very differently by the city. And so while I had my shelter on what is considered public property, I actually used the recorder's office, and I encourage a lot of folks to do this also. If you're looking at adverse possession, the most important place that you're going to spend a lot of time at is the recorder's office. Here in Oakland, it's the Alameda County Recorder's Office at 1111 Madison Street. And this is how you can look up records, ownership, or liens. You can actually see liens that have been filed against properties. And so in the next part, we'll be going over that and how you can take advantage of those the recorder's office documents, filing adverse possession paperwork, and then starting the path to an actual property and home ownership. There's a lot of details that I'm going to be covering in that adverse possession. So anyway, getting back to how I got my city sanctioning. Number one, I was on public property, and then I also knew that the city was going to come back at me to remove me, and they did. They tried to in 2015. And then I was already ahead of them, because I knew that if I had ID that kept me in that area and on a property, there was nothing that the city could do, nor the police. And if I also had backing from that property owner, there was no way you're going to leverage me. I was like a tick. I was set in there, and there was nothing you could do. One of the first things that I did, the property was abandoned, essentially. It wasn't abandoned, but it only had one guard watching the entire area. And the guards, they don't really care that much about a property that there's nothing there. And so mail delivery was still being delivered to this address. And let me tell you something. I found this out back in 2002. It is not illegal for you to have your mail delivered at another address, even if it's not authorized, because I had a scammer actually having their mail delivered to my Grand Lake home. I called the post office. The post office said, does the person live there? I said, no, I've never met this person. And they said, well, you can throw it away. It's not illegal. They literally, the Postmaster General told me that it was not illegal to use somebody else's mailing address. And so this scammer had credit cards coming in, he had IDs coming in, and there was nothing that I could do. And police wouldn't do anything, Postmaster General wouldn't do anything. So here's what you need to do. If there's a property that's in the area, you need to get a government ID with that address. See, folks, look at the address there, 877th Avenue. That means I live there. So while I was across the street on the sidewalk with my shelter, when the police came to clear out the encampment, and I just started picking my stuff up, and I walked across the street, the police officers, plural, said, "No, you cannot go there." I said, "Excuse me, officer, but yes, I can." And I showed him my ID. And he's looking at the ID. He sees 877th Avenue on my government ID. So that really makes it nothing he can do. He did ask if I go inside to this business and ask them if you could be on their property, what will they say? I already had a good arrangement with that business. I was very business friendly. I was also watching the outside, because this company kept a lot of truck chassis, the trailer chassis, parked outside on the street. And so I guarded those for them. And they gave me permission to be on their property when I needed to. They also gave me electricity, and they gave me water, access to water. So it was a very, very good relationship with that business and myself. And with this card, I became immovable, and the city realized that. And then also what they did, they were still trying to remove me through another means. And so what I ended up doing, I ended up using the recorder's office, and I found out that the street, 77th Avenue, down on that end, was actually no longer a public road. It was a private road. It became a private road in 1963 when the creation of the BART plans came about. And so they closed off the very end of 77th Avenue because the BART tracks ran right by or right across 77th Avenue. And so they had to close that off, and that now became a private street. And the question was, who was the actual owner? Because the city and county closed off 77th Avenue. It's a city property, but the city didn't claim it. In fact, we found a name, and it wasn't the city on that street. That street in the Alameda County records documented a person. So that was a private street. What the city was doing was actually illegal, unless the owner and their lawyer had stepped in and asked the city to do that. And the city didn't do that. Or, the city wasn't called upon by the property owner. The property owner was actually 877th Avenue, because he owned that property on the entire street, on that side of the street. And so I also knew his name. I knew his address. I had his tax records. And then what ended up happening, he passed away. And so that called into question even more. And for a while, there was a big abandonment issue. And so, and then on top of getting my state ID, I also was clearing out the problems, the serious problems of that road. We had illegal dumping, which is back again. We had a lot of car thieves stealing cars, taking them down to 77th Ave and stripping them. Once again, we have that issue that has returned, and the city has not dealt with it. They have not dealt with the criminals that actually lived there, and I know who they are. But the police don't do anything because they say, well, we don't have any evidence. I said, well, you have all the evidence of all these vehicles. What more do you want me to do? Take video of them actually stealing the cars? Because it's nearly impossible to be around when the crew, the theft crew, the stripping crew, actually comes in the middle of the night and begins taking and dismantling all the different cars. Right now, I hope that you're not an owner of a Kia or a Hyundai, because those are right now the easiest to steal. And we're seeing there's been at least a dozen Kias and Hyundais stolen and stripped at the end of 77th Avenue, and yet Oakland Police Department does absolutely nothing. So, but anyway, I got this sanctioning because, number one, they couldn't move me. Number two, I dealt with and removed all of those issues that Oakland was not dealing with. I got rid of the car thieves. I got rid of the druggies. I got rid of the prostitution issues. I got rid of a lot of the criminals. And it was in that area what was really interesting, because in 2018, before the sanctioning, the mayor's office sent a representative down to talk to me and then to negotiate a city sanctioning and using my model for the future. And so that was one of the reasons why I was never shut down. I was planned. My site, my homeless encampment, was going to be the model for self-sufficiency of Oakland back then. And then I got the city sanctioning. We made all the agreements, and here was the keynote that really made it drive home for me, was that representative from the mayor's office said to me, "We were absolutely shocked and amazed that your camp is the only camp that has not had a single complaint in 3 years. 3 years, that's a long time. That's 2015 to 2018. So that's how I got the city sanctioning, because I was a positive in the area. I dealt with the things that City of Oakland wasn't dealing with. I got rid of a lot of the illegal dumpers because I started filming, taping, and then we also had cameras all over the area. And so we started turning these people in to 311, and we were getting paid. We were getting paid good money, because the reward is for turning in an illegal dumper, and they catch them, they prosecute them. You are entitled to collect 50% of what the city collects. And so that was a source of income for me here in Oakland for a number of years, because I was getting $400 or $500 for each one of those illegal dumpers. And then it also got word around to a lot of the illegal dumpers, don't go there, because I got caught, and they've got cameras everywhere. And so that helped the city immensely. And then when my camp grew beyond the 35 that we had agreed upon, and we actually had peaked out at one point at 63 folks, and we were on both sides of the street. And like I said, the building there at 800 and coming down 860 and all of those, the addresses, that was an empty building. There was no business there. So there were no workers. And so at the time, it wasn't that difficult for people to set up on both sides. But when the city came in and said, look, you need to cut this camp size down. We agreed upon a certain number, and you need to not exceed that number. And so we cut that camp down. We cut it in half. literally. Is we removed, we had a deep cleaning. Literally, we had a deep cleaning, and then also what transpired was that we had a lot of people that were wanted by the police coming in and hiding in the camp. And so what we did, and they were also the troublemakers in the camp. So on that day of the deep cleaning, we also, the entire camp, pointed out all of these problem children, and they were removed. That was the easiest way to remove, the problems that we were starting to deal with, and then that Oakland was starting to talk to me about. And so we removed nearly half the camp, and out of that 34 people that we removed, half of them had open warrants. So that was an easy cleaning there. And so we cooperated with law enforcement. We also had the lowest 911 calls to our encampment out of all of Oakland's homeless encampments. We had the fewest 911 calls to our camp. And so that's why we got city sanctioning. We were managed. I managed it. It was a self-managed camp. And when the mayor decided that self-governance was not going to be in the cards, then we started talking about co-governance, where we keep the model that they have, and we'll work with their third parties, but the third party we diminish. We wanted to diminish their oversight to literally just saying, well, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and you have to remain in the CCNRs that we agreed to. And most camps can't do that because you don't have an enforcement crew to deal with the problem children who refuse to follow the rules. But our camp did. We had a 24-hour security crew. It was manned by 6 men, and we did what we needed to do to keep everybody safe and to keep the good relationship that we had with the neighbors in the neighborhood, the residents, and then also the businesses. So it was real important that we maintained all of that, and I did. And then what ended up happening when COVID hit, a lot of opportunities opened up for my camp. And one of the promises that I made early on to my camp, once we got our sanctioning, is that I told everybody, I'm going to work my ass off to get you into acceptable housing. You have to find it acceptable, not the city, not the county. You say what's right for you and what's not right for you. And so we worked on that model. And over the course of time, I was able to get a lot of at-risk seniors off of the street into the safe RV park at 633 Hagenberger. I got a lot of folks into there, the seniors, and then those that were at risk with their health and age. So we cleared out nearly a third of the camp that way. Then we had other opportunities open, such as Room Key, Alameda County Room Key. I was part of a co-governing board on our healthcare system for Alameda County, and I was able to get a lot of folks into Project Room Key, and because they were at risk, and so that left me with a very small amount of people coming towards once housing started becoming available, and then all of a sudden there was a big rush for a lot of folks coming to say, hey, we know you could get us into this program, we need your help. And so I did what I could for a majority of the people that came, even if they weren't in my camp. I helped folks into those Project Room Keys, the safe senior RV park at Hagenberger, and other programs. I worked with a lot of private programs also. And these were the best programs because these actually funded housing and provided real substantial housing. And so a majority of the folks that are now housed came into the temporary programs, and then we were able to move them from those temporary programs into sustained permanent housing solutions that was acceptable for them, and then also continue their continuum of care for their health care, because a lot of these folks also had, like myself, they're aging, and a lot of age-related issues could cut your life short. And so this helped a lot of people, and it keeps a lot of our seniors alive. And our Black population is very endangered already, because we have a lot of unhealthy habits. We have a lot of diabetes because a lot of folks drink so much sugar or eat so much sugar in their food, and so diabetes is a silent killer in the homeless encampments. And there's unless you have like Novolog doesn't require the refrigeration like typical medications, or if you're on a pill form like me, because I'm a lower risk, I'm a lower version of diabetes. And so I'm on metformin to control my diabetes, and my diabetes came about, number one, because I'm getting older, and then number two, the foods that were being provided to the homeless encampments had a lot of starches, had a lot of sugars, pastas, sweet sauces in there, and so as my doctor said, that's a diet of a young person, and you're much older, your system is very different and less tolerant of the things that you used to like, and so you have to change. And then also with my high blood pressure, I have to watch my sodium intake. Diabetes at the worst, I was up to my A1C was nearly 72. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Now I'm back down to a very low 60s. I'm about 62, 63 now. So I'm in a much safer range. My target was 6.7, and I'm at a 6.2, 6.3 right now. So significantly better. Also, I've really limited taking my intake, my meals that involved starches. So I've really narrowed down removing a lot of starches. I don't buy sugar. I do have a sugar substitute, which is Splenda, and it's a more natural sweetener, and it's not that pig stuff that could cause some problems. But these are things that come about as we age, and it's important that we get our seniors off the street into healthy situations, protected, and into permanent housing solutions with continuum of care for the rest of their life. And for those of you that are struggling, there are other means to take possession, and the possession, adverse possession, is a version of what the state and county does in taking over a property, because that's how they get it. Because these properties, their taxes aren't being paid, they're not being maintained or upkeep. The owner has died, and so there's nobody to maintain that property. And there's a lot of these. There are a lot of these around. In fact, I've spoken to a couple of people who were talking about a property that they inherited, and yet it is now over 5 years since they received that notice, and they haven't done anything. And I told that individual, you need to go check and see if it's still yours, because typically within 2 years, if you don't pay the taxes and you don't acknowledge notices from the county, in 2 years, they're going to take that property from you. And then what they do, if the county takes it or the state takes it, typically they're going to resell it to the highest bidder on an open auction. And so what we're doing, we're beating the county and state to that and filing actual paperwork that says adverse possession. We're going to assume all the risk of this property. And one of the most notable that probably everybody in America knows about, Moms for Housing. You remember Moms for Housing? Well, that was adverse possession. That's one of the forms of adverse possession, Moms for Housing. So you can go back, look that up. You can even look up, Google adverse possession. It's very interesting. It covers a wide array of topics on how to acquire these properties. It's not cheap, and there's some jail and prison time risk with working with adverse possession. So we're going to get more in depth with that as we get further down the road with this, but I just wanted to let you folks know I did get an official Oakland City sanctioning, kept my camp from being closed, and the stipulation was that once I walked away from 77th Ave Rangers community, that the city of Oakland would assume everything and they would finish closing out that camp. Well, still hasn't been closed. It should have been closed in December. And right now, car thieves are taking back over that area. So Oakland, you need to send OPD down there and a regular patrol to deal with these criminals that are destroying our city. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.